And this is
I think the screen is blocked, or you
very
are not
useful to document your code as
perfectly.
well, because then you share with someone this type of thing, and they can even render it on, let's say, GitHub, GitLab, and on a website, basically. So I'm gonna import some other necessary stuff. This all works. So basically what we are doing here is importing necessary things for Twitter. Basically, this is the TweetPy library that we talked about last week. It's a library that interfaces with Twitter with their API, and you have a very extensive documentation on how to access it and manage streams, get all the information from the tweets, etc. If you want to make your own application, remember that you have to go to developer Twitter, and get an application key for your application to run. So you will need to have first an account and then make a request for an application. Otherwise, you won't be able to talk to the Twitter API. They will send you a code that you then have to copy and save on a file. This is basically what we are doing in here. We are importing Twitter libraries, then some extra things that I will explain later what they are for. And then this is more stuff that at the moment you don't really have to worry about. This is some generic Python stuff. But here is the important one. This is what we called, well, this is the package called Volume. Volume is a package for visualizing timestamp geographical data. So what does that mean? Is a way to generate maps that are available for the web and put things on top of them. This is very interesting because it builds on top another library called leaflet.js, which is a library for JavaScript that wherever you, like almost all the maps online, you will see this little corner here, unless it's Google, but generally you, like open source places, use this source, and then normally you get them from OpenStreetMaps. Okay, it's very open, widely used. And Python Volume, it's a wrapper for Leaflet that lets you build those maps, but using Python instead of JavaScript. So that being said, this is what we are importing in here. And what I'm going to do now is import my environment files. You might be wondering, and this, I think that has happened to some of you. I think Cesar, that I don't think it's connected, had the same problem, is that what is an environment file? An environment file is a secret file in which you put your keys, let's say your passwords or your access tokens to an API or something else that you don't want to put online. You don't want to share it and send it to a GitHub repository, because then someone else can use your password and steal your account or things like this. So basically, you normally put this type of things in what we call an environment file, and that comes in a shape of .env. It doesn't have a name. It just has an extension. And if we look at my folder, you will see that there's this file called .env in the second one. So if I see the contents of that file, this is the API keys that come from Twitter, from the application that I created. This is what you have to put in this file when you receive the token from your application that you get in developers.twitter.com. So what we are going to do now is load that file, and hopefully everything goes well, and now we have our environment variable set up. If you inspect a little bit, what we are doing in here is opening the file. Get current directory is basically where I am executing this code in. So this is the folder that I am working on, Python internet. That you see that I get the same in my terminal and in here. So it's exactly the same. And Python is getting this. So get current working directory function returns me that. What I'm doing is loading an environment file that is located in the folder as environment, and I'm saying for each of the variables that the environment file has, split them with the equal, and then put them in what we call the environment of Python. And if you look at OS environ, which is a dictionary, then I have a lot of data, which is basically what am I working on, the type of shell that I'm using, many other things. And at the very end, I have the keys that I have from my Twitter application. And this will be only used during my session, the session that I'm working on now. And they are accessible and visible to the Python session that I'm working on it. Okay. So now that I have them on this session, it's easy for me to ask things to Twitter. And what I'm going to do is basically copy paste the code that we did the other day, the class listener, and put it in here. So here I have the definition of the listener. This is going to be an object that basically is listening to Twitter, and whenever a tweet happens, it's going to send me, let's say, a notification. It's not a notification on itself. What it's going to do is execute some code, and the code that is going to run happens when in here in this function called onStatus. So a status is when something happens on Twitter, especially related to one topic that we're filtering, this function in here will be executed. So if I comment all of this and I run it, and I say print status, it didn't complain. So now I'm gonna initiate all this. And I'm gonna create, let me do it step by step. So I'm gonna create an object that is this listener, and I'm gonna start it. The function that starts it is also defined in here. And basically, we'll just say starting listener, and we'll initiate a dictionary in which we will put the tweets that we receive. So basically that, starting listener. There's nothing else going on in here. If I look inside and I say Twitter listener dot tweets, it's empty. There's nothing yet. Then I will initiate. I will authenticate myself versus Twitter. I will tell Twitter, hey, this is this consumer, and these are my secrets. Let's say my token and my passwords, so that I can get identified against Twitter. That all works well. And then I'm gonna start the stream. So I'm gonna start listening to tweets and printing them when I receive something, in this time related with coronavirus. So that's running, and you see that here we are receiving already a lot of tweets because it's a topic that is going and going forever. We could do another test instead of putting something so I don't know, so trendy right now. We could change it and put something like Java Academy, and I'm sure that there are not so many tweets about it right now. It's running, and you see that there's nothing going on. If someone posted something about Java Academy, it will appear here. Okay, and this is basically what we're doing is making a stream, authentifying ourselves against Twitter with this set of keys. We are saying, please call this function when you receive a tweet and track the topic Java Academy. So if someone makes a tweet now and says hashtag Java Academy or puts in a text something about Java Academy, it should appear here. So if I invite you to do it, if someone has Twitter, and let's see, let's test it actually, if it works. Does anyone have Twitter? Hello?
No,
Okay.
no tweet.
Okay, so while that happens, I'm gonna leave this running, and let's see how we get all that information into a map. So if you check this code in here, I'm not gonna run it. I'm not gonna stop anything. What we are doing in here before printing it, we are gonna take the tweet. Then what we're gonna do, let me just review. Here we are saying simply, here we got a tweet at this time. This is a way that you can say we just received a tweet, and it's debugging that we received one. Then we're gonna create a dictionary to store it. And then we're gonna put, we're gonna clean the text of that tweet. We're gonna remove hashtags and other things, URLs and this type of things from the full tweet by a function that is called clean tweet. So that function does something very difficult that it's a little bit complex. I copied it from somewhere else, but basically is substituting, making a substitution for anything that contains a hashtag, at and numbers and complex things, cleaning it and returning it back. This is something that if you want to read about is called regex, which is regular expression. It's a way for you to handle strings in computing and making like smart ways of finding strings or substrings within sentences and these things. So we clean the tweet, and then we only store the information that we want. We don't store everything. So we're going to store the date, and that is part of the tweet that we receive, the author, the name of the author, like the URL of the author, and the location. And for the location,
can you run the code again to see if it works for me? I just tweeted something.
Do something that we call parsing, which means we are gonna cleaning a little bit and return just the latitude and longitude of the tweet, not the whole thing. So up till here is what we did last week. What we want to do now is put these things on a map, let's say. I think that someone should have, I think someone tweeted something. I deleted my account. Okay. File Academy. Okay, well, we'll see. So what I'm gonna invite you to do now is to tell me, well, actually, let me show you first how this volume thing works, and then I will invite you to do a little bit more of hands-on work. So with the code that you already have, let's try to save that into an HTML file. So once we receive the tweet, we have an instance of locations. Let's run this for a second. Coronavirus. Oh, yeah. Stop it. Stream. Okay. So I stop this, and then I go to Twitter listener. Tweets. Oh, a second. Twitter listener start. Okay. So let's have a look. Okay, I know what's going on. Not saving them. So you see, before I had commented this part of the code and it was not showing, was not saving the tweets. It was only printing them. I rerun this part and now it should save them. So if I start the coronavirus stream and then I stop the code, then here if I print this, I should have the tweets, which I don't. See. Okay, there we go. So here, for example, I have 3 tweets, and they are 0, 1, 2, 3, and we are storing in them the information that we said before. So we are storing a text that is somehow cleaned without URLs and weird things, the date on when that tweet was posted. So that was posted 1 minute or 30 seconds ago. We don't know where because the location is not specified, by someone called Margaret Dixon, saying that Scotland is credibly lucky to have politicians like blah, 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 and medical advisors like whatever. The same for the rest. And here you see that in some cases we have the location of the tweet, as in this one, in the text or the tweet number 1, and you see that location in this case is specified. So if we visit this in Google Maps, we should see where this text with this occurred. Very likely it's going to be in Italy because it's an Italian tweet. So if we go to Maps, this, we are somewhere in Pescara in Italy, a very beautiful town apparently. So these coordinates, this is where the tweet came from that we just took. This is a little bit scary, but it's basically what Twitter is giving us. So it's nothing that we are hacking anyone. And the same, so we have a very long stream of tweets that we could keep running forever. And then we will store them in this format, okay? So the idea is that now we take this location and we put it on a map. We make a small dot on the on a map based on these coordinates. Okay, so the way Folium works, Folium is the library that we are going to use for maps, is by putting dots on with what we call a Geo Json format. And what is that? Geo Json is an open standard for representing geographical data, let's say. Here, I think that, for example, for Mitale, it would be interesting for you to explore this, because then you could probably track or start doing some of your work for your FAB-ISP tracking of components. But you see basically that I'm putting markers in here, and then I'm generating a collection of features that basically has a set of coordinates and where we're putting them and the type of item that we're putting. So in this case, we're putting a point, but we could put, for example, a line that goes from Switzerland to Italy. And I will create this line string that goes from this point somewhere in Switzerland to this point somewhere in Italy. And this is what we have to do. We have to create this structure so that we are able to send it to Folium, and then Folium being able to generate this map for us. So that's what this function does. When we receive the tweet, we are going to say if the location is not nothing. So if we can basically put, if we know that there's a location on that tweet, then we're going to add it to a list of features that then we're going to parse, we're going to generate into a map. So that function is taking the index of the tweet and saying, okay, for that tweet, give me the location and put it in the coordinates. You see this part here. Also, what we're going to do as well is when you click on the tweet, sometimes there could be a pop-up on top of it. So what we're going to put on top of it is the text of the tweet. We could put more things like the author or a link to the tweet, but for now we're just going to put the text. And also what we're going to do is later on we're going to make this map dynamic. So for now we won't do it. We will just leave this like this. So we're going to just close this like that. Exactly. So for now, we will just add it as a normal geometry, and we have to change this to point. So we will be adding points in these coordinates with this pop-up, and that's it. This is being added to a list of features that then we will send to a map. Okay, so then if I run this code for a little, I will be retrieving tweets. I will save them into a list, and after a while, I'm going to stop it and see where those things are. So let's see if it works. I actually didn't run it yet, so that should be working. So we are listening. This didn't work. Okay. Let me comment this. Another error. Okay, features is not defined. Okay. So it's complaining about a couple of things that I didn't put. Features equal that. So you see that is quite straightforward to do iterations on here. You see the errors, and then you can rerun the cells, and it's very, very nice to make some experimentation. So you see that we got a lot of tweets. Some of them didn't have locations, so we skipped them, but with the rest we added them to our list. And here something happened saying that non-type is non-subscriptable, is that we didn't catch this error. So let's see if user is not none. Okay, well, let's keep it for now. So these are all the tweets that we received. Probably a lot of them, well, a lot of them are Spanish, but from anywhere. So now we have them in this format. So let's see if I print features. I have them here. So this is the same format that this guy is expecting here. So let's just copy it and see what happens if I put it in there. So I take it and put it in here. Is this gonna work? New file. Let's see if this works. Okay. Looks like there's an error, but let's try. So desktop tweet station upgrade. Okay, so there's a mistake. Let's actually take this and instead of doing that, let's do something else. Let's second. Okay. Let's do it in Python because I think there are like some issues for me going through trying to copy this directly. So we're gonna put those features onto a map, and this is our map. So we're gonna call volume and we're gonna call a map, and this is Barcelona, the coordinates of Barcelona, and will be where we want it to be centered. So if I show this map, this is where we are at. I can change the location of the center. For example, I could send it somewhere, I don't know, like this, and then it will be located somewhere else. I can as well change these layers, the way that the tiles look. For example, instead of calling it a state and toner, there could be some other ones. So for example, tiles volume Python. And let's see. So there's like all the different map styles that you can imagine. That's quite nice. And many, like whatever you want. This is the one that I was using, for example, statement toner. There are some like Age of Empires old ones, Night, dark ones, etc. So let's see if this works actually. No. So that is like close one. Let's see this one. Yeah. So this is the dark one. So a little bit more hacky, let's say. Let's put this back to Barcelona and let's leave it in the one that I like. Okay. So now it's time to start adding features to this map. Do you have any questions till now? Are you still there?
Yes, here.
Any feedback? No. Why don't you? I mean, for me, it's very hard to get feedback from you if you don't tell me anything. So tell me, even if it's not on the chat, or just interrupt me. You can mute and just.
I don't know if you're listening now, Oscar, because
it's very tricky for me to slow down if I don't know.
Oscar, can you listen to us?
Who is Abertran? Okay. Could you? My volume up, but Pablo is muted.
No, ahorita, pero I was trying to speak before. Can you listen to me?
I think you need to unmute.
Oscar, ¿me oyes?
Yeah.
Let me refresh and I come back. Hello.
Hola, hola, ¿nos oyes?
Sí. Okay. So I hear you now. I think probably, I don't know why, but I just refreshed and I start hearing you. So my apologies if I was ignoring you. It was not intentional. Okay, so Pablo, do you want to ask something?
No, I'm kind of behind. I just finished installing the additional libraries because I wasn't in the last class, but I was asking where can I get the .env file? Developers
Okay.
Twitter?
Yeah, so in Twitter, you will, if you sign in, let me go into my account. Whatever. So you see that I'm not. Yep. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen, right? Yeah. So if you go to developers, Twitter. Oh, developer. What is it? Twitter.com, exactly. So you have a profile in developer.twitter.com, and you go to apps. And I have this one already created, which is the one that I had for an art installation that I did a while ago. That you can create another application in here, and you have to answer certain questions like what the purpose of your installation, if you're gonna do racist stuff or not, things like that, and it will give you some details. So we see keys and tokens, which is the set of tools that you have to copy and put them on a file. The .m file, you have to create it, and you can do that in a text editor.
Sorry, I'm in developer Twitter, but I can't seem to find where you are. Wait, developer Twitter, use cases, product docs, more labs.
So if you see here on the, let's say, it says here Osconfer, I am an artist. I don't know. In your case would be Pablo, I am engineer or something. This is automatically generated, but here it should be apps.
Okay. Yes.
And in apps, right now I have one already created. That is this more than words _ live media. But since you won't have any, you have to create one.
Okay.
And in here, you have to give a name, description, if any other information. And this is a little bit so that they can filter the type of applications that people is requesting, so that you don't make an application that all of a sudden is posting hate speech on Twitter, for example. So they more or less check these type of things, and then they will give you a token that will appear in here. And this is the application that I have, and you should copy these 4 fields: the API key, the secret, the access token, and the token secret. These last 2, the access ones, will only be shown to you the first time. So if you need to recuperate them because you didn't copy them, you have to regenerate them, and it will give another one to you. Okay. And then once you have all these 4 codes, you go to any code editor and you paste them like this. So you put consumer key equal and the key, secret and the key, and the rest. And then you save it as .env file, and that's it.
Can you stay in that window for a while? I'm gonna take a screenshot, just at least to know how to. Wait. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then this is the file. I mean, you could name this file however you want. The purpose of it being .env is so that you don't send it anywhere. It's like I say, a hidden file, so you won't commit it or share it with other people if you send the code, this type of thing. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm starting to create the API, so I'll follow you a little bit behind, but I'm paying attention.
That's okay. So well, coming back to that area, you see that here we're opening the file and loading the vars, and this is how they end up being in your code. Okay, and this is what you will use to authenticate yourself against Twitter. So regarding what we did last week, it should be more or less the same. The only thing that we're changing now is adding new features and seeing how we can display them in a map. So at the moment, what we have created is a list of features that we have saved in a variable called features, and each of them has 4 things: a geometry, which is like determining how it's going to look. In this case, we want to put points in coordinates, and then we want them to have a pop-up that shows a text, and the same for all of them. And now what we have to do is add them to the map. So what we're going to do is just that. So here is our instance of the map. We just created this variable that is called m. I will call it something else, maybe map, Twitter map, so that is a little bit more understandable. And when we create that, when we see that variable, this is what the what volume is rendering. We could save this to an HTML. I think it's to HTML. Let me double check. Oops. Here. So Twitter map, and then we can save this in where we are now. So here is the same technique that I was using before to get the folder that I am working in, and I'm going to save the map into a file called map.html. So when I do that, and I go to my folder, here I should have map.html. And if I open this in the browser, it's the map. Okay? But for now, there's nothing in here. It's just a map. Okay? So what we have to do now is add the features to the map so that we can see where the Twitter interaction was happening. For that, I have to check the documentation. So add marker to volume map. Okay. Volume marker. Let's do it this way. So here, this instance is what we call the dots, what we're going to put on top of the map. And these are markers. On maps, you can have lines, markers, and these things. So what we're going to do is add to Twitter map a marker that has coordinates and a pop-up. So those coordinates, for now, we're going to put them Barcelona coordinates. So we're going to look for Barcelona coordinates. is like that. So that's Barcelona, and we're gonna put a pop-up that says hello. So I created the map, the marker, and I'm gonna, let's see if it worked. So now we have the marker put on here, and if I click, it says hello. Okay, and it's exactly in Barcelona, in the center of Barcelona. You see that this is rendering and it's an SVG. So it infinitely, you can zoom in infinitely. If I save it over again, and then I go to the file that I created earlier, and I open it in here, I have the same, but in HTML. And if I click, I have hello. So the idea is now to do this somehow programmatically, and for all the tweets that we have been saving, let's add them to the map. So I was showing a way to do it earlier, but since this is a little bit simpler, let's do it that way. So what we're gonna do is modify our feature list. And instead of doing this, we're just gonna add this part. So we have our coordinates in here. That's the location, and then the pop-up is the text. And when I run this for a little while, then I should have a map that contains all the tweets for the time that I have been running it. So if I go here, let me just make sure that this is being received properly. So feature added, feature added, feature added. Some of them you see that they don't have location. So it keeps going. Let me remove this. And then, of course, I have to stop this part because it's so, and here you go. So this is all the tweets that we have been receiving in this little while. They are now being put on the map. And when we click on them, then we see what the person has said. So the pop-up contains now the content of the tweet. Okay, then something else we could do is try to make this, well, we could save this again, sorry. Let's have a look. I just saved it. Let me put this and refresh. So I just saved it and I refreshed in this HTML file and I have the same, okay? So are you still there?
Yes.
You can see my screen. I know, but that's a while ago. Can you guys see my screen? Or
yeah, I was seeing the map and the tweets and what you were showing. And then I was saying that she wasn't being able to see it.
Oh.
It's weird because if I put the toggle view, I can see like all the screens, and in that one I can see your screen, but it's probably my connection. Okay. I don't know why, but
okay. Probably this is not the best way then to connect. Same. Okay. Then let's move on to another link. Give me a second. You need to refresh every 5 minutes. Okay. So then this is not working very well. Probably this is too overloaded. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's try. Where are you? Git. Hola, Andrea, ¿me oyes? here. Okay, so it looks like Google is going to be our solution for now. So let me come back to this. Do you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna deactivate my video so that this goes a little faster. Okay, so where were we at? Please do not hesitate to unmute and interrupt me when something goes wrong. Yeah, and thank you for your patience, because this is going to be a little bit tricky these days until we get to a workflow after this pandemic. Okay, so here again, we were back to the Twitter virus thing. So basically, we were requesting to Twitter, we were listening to Twitter with respect to coronavirus. We were then generating a map, and then we were putting markers on it. Those markers are being parsed by the application, basically taking the location and putting a pop-up that has a tweet that we have just clicked. Do you follow more or less what's going on until here? Yes or no?
Yes, more or less. I'm still waiting for the Twitter to activate my account, but I'm trying to understand what you're doing and installing other packages while that.
Okay. So I think from now on, what we will do is, well, Twitter, just an answer for you, Pablo, takes a little time to give you access to an application and the tokens, so it will take a little while. And what we will do from now on is probably start to work with Jupyter for us to have a faster workflow. And I will start sharing with you these notebooks. In fact, I will send you this one once we finish with today's session in 15 minutes. But the idea is that if you have this set up, then it will be very easy for you to start iterating and doing your projects related to Python a little bit more in a streamlined way with respect to other codes that you run, for example, on the terminal or scripts on your computer. Okay.
Oscar, one question. When I install a library with pip install, it's the same as installing it with, for example, conda install. Do they install it in the same place, or if I'm gonna use Jupyter, I need to do the conda?
No. So as you know, you have conda that is managing your environment. Right now, I have these 4 environments, which is the base that comes with Anaconda, a Python 2.7, a Python 3.7, and one that I use for data analysis for Smart Citizen. Whenever I activate one environment, for example, I have activated earlier Smart Citizen data, which is the one that I use again for analyzing data with the Smart Citizen. Anything that I run with pip install request is going to be installed in that environment, in the environment that I have active. So Conda already knows, you see, that requirement already satisfied requests in environment Smart Citizen data. So it knows that I have an environment active, and then when I do pip install, it checks if it's already in the environment that I have. So it would be the same as conda install request, but it's a little bit longer because conda goes to something that we call conda forge. which is more or less like pip, but led by the, well, it's the same, but led by the community and a little bit slower than pip. So it takes a little longer. You see that is collecting data, and it takes much longer than with pip, but it's basically the same. I generally recommend you to use pip.
Okay, so I need to install it in each environment I am using. I need to install it again to do the pip install name of library, Imagio, for example.
Yeah, exactly. But only in the one. So the idea that for you to have different environments is that you want to really separate projects. If you are now experimenting and you are not having like active projects that you have to release into production or things like this, then you don't have to create separate environments.
Okay, and another question: how do I, for example, if I want to use a library in the IDLA in el idle, the Python,
Okay.
how do I install it for that? Also through the terminal?
I think so. The only problem with that is that, let me see. Let me check one thing. Applications, Python. This one's right. So let's just double check. It should be opening, I think, or Python launch. So let me do one thing. This will be. So you see, with this command, I just deactivated the environment. And now if I run Python, this is the default Python installation that I have on my computer, which is more or less, if you're running a Mac, is the same. So if you want to install something that is available for that, you should do it without activating any environment.
Okay,
sometimes,
so I would need to do it from the shell of the program.
You could do it from here, but without having any Conda environment active.
Okay.
However, I would firstly recommend you to not use idle.
Okay.
Because it's the pre-installed version of Python that comes with Mac, and I'm not saying that that is bad, but it's Python 2.7 what runs inside of that. And Python 2.7 stopped being supported as of January 2020. And little by little, there would be less and less support and documentation for it. So it would be better if you have your Conda environment set up and then try to make your default Python the one that you install with Conda instead of the one that comes pre-installed with your Mac.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm using, okay.
But I mean, I'm not imposing, just it's just an advice.
No, I'll follow it. Thank you.
Okay. So, do you guys would like? I'm gonna send you this file, and I would like you to give me some feedback. How comfortable do you feel trying to run this at the moment?
Oscar, I lost the part you were explaining about Jupyter and the notebook, how it works.
You would like to have a little bit, sorry, again? I lost it.
I lost before the part that you were explaining Jupyter and the notebooks. How?
Okay. So this, the notebook is basically a file that you open in the browser that is being executed by a Jupyter server. What does that mean? In order to be able to experiment with a little bit more flexibility, this project Jupyter tried to create, let's say, an interface with Python that uses web protocols or web interfaces in order for you to have a little bit more of or like the recent advances that you've been seeing in web development in general, like all the features and niceness for interaction that you have in the browser lately have been very, how to say, making our lives very, very easy, and interacting with big amounts of data and trying to visualize things offline without the browser, it's a little bit more tricky. So Jupyter is a project that tries to make the interaction with the code a little bit easier and create these notebooks that they launch a Python kernel in the background. So there's someone listening to our commands, and they do it in the interactive way. And they are organized in these cells. So you see this is one cell, this is another cell, this is another cell, and you can add them or delete them and put things inside and execute the code that you have in it. So for example, in this cell, I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to print hello class. That's Python code. If I press Shift Enter, then it executes the code inside and gives me an output if there's any output. So for example, in this case, I printed hello class, and it shows in there. Also, I could create, for example, a variable like I'm gonna call it variable 1, and I'm gonna say this is that value, and it doesn't give me anything because I'm not asking it to. But if I then add another one and say print variable 1, then it shows me the value because I'm asking it to print it. So basically, we're gonna put code in the same way as we have been doing till now in our scripts. But the nice thing is that we can run things chunk by chunk, and we have persistence across the different cells. So this cell put the variable in the kernel, and then this other one took it and printed in this line here. So when we run this cell for sample and we import these packages, then they are available in the whole notebook, and I can come back and rerun and go back down and run more things. This is interesting because, as you have seen at the beginning of the class, I had some issues with some libraries, and I could go back to my terminal, install something, and rerun it, and it started working right away. Then Jupyter also keeps track of what have been executed. So if I create another cell, you see that in here there's nothing. It's empty. It's because I never executed that cell. If I make a variable and I run it, it tells me 72, which is the cell has been executed after cell 71, 70, etc. If I run it again, it will be 73, and so on and so forth. If there's an error, it will tell me. For example, if I say A equal B, it will tell me B doesn't exist, basically. And it would have been executed, but it doesn't mean that it has been executed successful. It means that it has just been executed. I will send you this file, and what I will do is I will complete it with some extra notes, adding, for example, a markdown cell, giving you Jupyter basics. and I will put some commands inside so that you know and you can get your like yourself around into Jupyter from the very beginning. I will also send you an environment so that you are able to have these packages right away, and you know how to install it. I'll give you instructions for all this. The name Jupyter comes from Julia, Python, and R. So all these are computing languages. Julia programming is a language for more the like statistics and math, very high performance one. The same for R. It's the scientific community uses this language a lot, and you already know Python. So that's why we call it Jupyter. Is a name is Julia, Python, and R. The nice thing of it is that in the same notebook, you can combine different languages, and that is not straightforward. And basically, you can have Python talking to R and talking to Julia and sending variables across each other. That is very interesting because generally Python, you use it, well, Python is used for many things, but R, for example, is used for statistics, and you could send things from Python to R, compute them in R, and then return back to Python, this type of thing. But we won't go into that detail for now. Does that more or less help?
Yes, I think it helped a lot.
Okay, so when you see that when I'm here, I'm much more agile than when I am in the running with the terminal and with a script. Basically, because I can go here, run something, run this one again, and empty variables, run them, and go back. And also, the very nice thing about all this is that if you go to, for example, GitHub Jupyter notebook, you can go to notebook. Let's see if there's an example around here. Oh boy, okay. Python notebook. Wait a second. So I maintain this repository for data analysis in the Smart Citizen. And if you go here and you go into the examples folder, for example, you see that GitHub also renders these things. And then you can share not only code, but also results with other people. And this is very interesting, especially for research. If you're doing research with code and you want to share the results with other people, then you can put the code and then other results, images, plots, the map that we're creating, etc., etc. For now, it will be very useful for you as well to try to develop your own code and try to improve on it. So right now, I would really like for you to give me a little bit of feedback. I actually would like not only Zoe or Pablo to talk, but a little bit everyone, because as you know, well, these are going to be some tricky days with all the lockdown and isolation that we are experiencing. And probably we're going to have to do these sessions in the future the same way. And we will try to improve little by little. But how comfortable, and this is an open question, how comfortable would you feel trying to run this and doing a session in 2 weeks in which we have a challenge at the beginning of the session, and we try to do that challenge with my support online during 2 hours? Would you be interested in doing that, or would you rather me being talking for 2 hours as we have just done today? And now it's time for you to answer.
Personally, yes, I think it will be nice.
I think it's a little bit more difficult to follow it like remotely like this. But I think if we I think the recording for me personally would help a lot so that I could slow it down and follow it step by step later on, and then doing another session for either for questions or um, maybe like basically questions or better understanding of some particular things. Because right now I was trying to follow everything. I'm not sure if I got it. I think I got some of it, but trying it ourselves would obviously make it a lot better.
Okay, so for example, to cope with that very quickly, if you have the recording and then let's say the code that I am showing in my screen with annotation, then it will help you.
Yes.
Okay, so let's try to cope that with both those things. Okay, other one, some other people. Okay. So since I think it's more interesting for you to practice than for me to talk, at least for the next session, as we agreed last time, what I will do is I will send you this, and then what we will try to do is improve this and try to make a 2-hour session in which you modify the code and we make a challenge. I will try to work out a challenge for that session. For example, adding a dynamic map in which is showing a history or a timeline of the points dynamically, or some other things. But I think it would be more useful for you to at least get your hands dirty. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Oscar.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I will edit that and I will send it to you. Perfect.
Oscar, one question: in which software you save the env file? In any Python?
Yeah. So for example, for text editors, I use Sublime. But if you are using Atom, you could also save it. So
okay.
If you see file save as, you still see my screen, right?
Yes.
In my desktop, I can save, for example, hello.py, and that would be a Python file, or .env, which doesn't have a name, but it has an extension. And I save it. And you see that names that begin with a dot are reserved for the system. You can still do it and use dot, and that's it. That's the only thing you need to do.
Okay, and one question, because I was trying to use the code of the movie GIF with the posters, but
Yes,
all the API keys look the same, or because in this one they only send me like little numbers. So, or all
Yes,
have.
exactly.
Okay.
So you see, if you still see my screen, the first line here, the API key is this 6 or 7 numbers.
And I should write it with that API key equal and the code they gave me.
Exactly. So so that's how you should do it. And if you look at it, how it goes into this in the notebook, you see that we're opening the file and we're saying split each of the lines where it says equal. And the first number, the first part of the line, so in this case it would be API key, and then to A3115, that's the result of the split. Key will have 2 items, would be API key and the actual key, and we are putting them into this dictionary. So yes, you should just put it with an equal in the middle.
Without space between API key equal and the code.
Exactly.
Okay.
Without a space and anything, nothing extra.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so sorry for it being a little bit sloppy and difficult to follow today. Thank you for your patience as well. This is going to be a little bit difficult at the beginning. We are trying to get our workflows running for remote teaching, and I hope that we get it up and running soon. But again, thank you all for being listening today and for your patience. Hopefully, this will be much faster after today. We were the pioneers with remote Fab Academy teaching. So, yeah, with that being said, I'll send you this file via email, and I hope that you have a nice evening. Okay, stay safe.
Thank you, Oscar.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.